as well. Want to introduce our good friend Russ Moore, writer of Who's Hot, Who's Not.
All right, what's
How
going
are you,
on,
sir?
Josh? How you doing today?
Good.
All right, beautiful day.
Beautiful day, looking like a beautiful fall weekend. Finally, get out of the summer heat.
The doldrums.
The doldrums of heat. I see rock star from EcoRI walking into the studio. Let's talk a little bit about Who's Hot, Who's Not this week.
All right, let's do it.
Jenny Johnson over at City Year.
Absolutely, yeah. City Year, and they're getting professionals into the classroom to try to improve education in Providence. She was in here on GoLocal Live earlier this week, and I thought she gave a great presentation. And it's nice to see the focus on education. We need all the help we can get here in Rhode Island, so I wanted to give them a little shout out, show some love, and put her on the hot list.
Yeah, City Year's been working hard for decades now here in Providence. And, the results are there. They can show that the classrooms that they help out in, the test scores are higher, the attendance is better, et cetera,
Right.
et cetera.
Makes sense.
And I do believe that our former colleague, Dan McGowan, was a City Year grad as well.
He was.
Yeah.
Dan is a friend of mine, and I can attest to that. He was a City Year grad.
I
I think he's still in journalism, but I'm not sure.
I don't know.
I don't know.
He left the market.
Yeah.
Patricia Morgan on the hot list.
Sure, I wanted to give the majority leader some.
Minority leader.
Excuse me, the minority leader on the put her on the hot list because she is pretty much all in. She's running for governor. I think it's a long shot candidacy because I think she's going to have some trouble raising money. However, she deserves a lot of credit because she gives voice to a lot of good government issues here in Rhode Island, and I think she'll undoubtedly influence the conversation and influence the governor's race in a positive way.
Well, it's interesting. I think, don't hold me to the numbers, but we were talking about it with Bob Whitcomb yesterday, a little bit about Giovanni Feroci, who's also looking at running. So you have Giovanni Feroci, who's in a little turmoil right now.
But he has executive experience.
He has executive experience, and, Bob Whitcomb was saying, listen, he's got charisma. When he walks in a room, you pay attention.
That's for sure.
You've got Joe Trillo, who's got some money. He's got some personal wealth and says he wants to spend it.
And he's got that Trump-esque,
Yeah.
I don't give a care what you think about me attitude. And I think
he's
that
got that nailed down.
Yeah, and I think that could be valuable in a Republican primary, so you've got him.
And then you've got Alan Fung, who ran last time, put on a pretty good race. If it weren't for Bob Healy,
Would be the governor.
Would, in all likelihood, be the governor. But the turnout is going to be so low in a Democratic primary that
Republican?
Republican primary, I tend to differ with you on the fact that Patricia Morgan can't win this race because the numbers are so low. Social media, networking, city and town committees may mean the difference, and she being the only woman out of the four could potentially break through, and it could be a race amongst any one of them.
Absolutely. That's probably what she's thinking, and that Republican nomination is very valuable. We've seen a lot of Republican governors here in Rhode Island, from Dupree to Almond to Kachiri, because you get outside of Providence in the suburbs, they're not afraid to vote Republican. We've seen that time and again. So in a scenario like that, she could very well be the next governor, and that's why she's on the hot list.
Bradley Collins, Dr. Bradley Collins from Miriam Hospital, he's on the list.
A Lincoln resident, he's now president of the Rhode Island Medical Society, and we wish him a lot of luck in that position. Hopefully the Medical Society can contribute to the conversation and try to help to kind of drive down the cost of healthcare in Rhode Island, because we need to do that not only nationwide but also in Rhode Island, because I don't think the economy can withstand double-digit rate hikes every year to the cost of insurance. So I think we need to work collaboratively. Insurance companies, hospitals, medical society all need to work together to try to drive down those costs. And hopefully he can be a productive part of that conversation.
Healthcare in Rhode Island's in a little bit of turmoil. Most of the hospitals are running deficits. Care New England is borderline on the fringe. They're under some level of agreement with Partners Healthcare. So there's a lot going on. Physicians are also involved with this discussion about opiate abuse,
right,
and are really the first line to be able to help control that issue.
Absolutely.
In how they're prescribing. An interesting name that probably virtually no one in America knew on Saturday, Alejandro Villanueva, of the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Sure.
And he, by 7 o'clock on
Sunday night, was a household name.
Yeah, was a household name and stood really apart from almost everyone else in the entire discussion, with whatever side you were on. Talk a little bit about him.
I mean, this man is an Army Ranger. This man has done 3 tours of duty in Afghanistan. So by right, he could really be on the hot list, any week.
Yeah.
But in this week in particular, the Pittsburgh Steelers decided that they weren't going to come out for the national anthem because they didn't want to they didn't want to put their players on the line one way or the other, where they had to make a choice or make a tough decision. And Mr. Villanueva said, I can't do that. I need to go out and to salute the flag. They're not going to play the anthem and me not go out there and show the respect for it. So whatever your political views are or whatever you think on this issue, you have to kind of give this gentleman a nod, because it's not easy to go against your friends, right? It's like, it's easy to stand up to your foes, but it's hard to stand up to your friends. And J.K. Rowling, once wrote that, the author of Harry Potter. I figured I'd give her a little shout out too. So I wanted to show him some love on the hot list. I think a lot of people had a lot of respect for him for having the courage to do that. So good for him.
Yesterday we had in the illustrator to the Paddington books. He is one of the authors to the children's books and festival over at Lincoln School.
Sure.
And it's a famous group of authors. Dave McCauley's there and others. Really
a big deal.
A great event. We're always trying to find new ways to support authors in Rhode Island and
literacy.
Literary events. This is a pretty special event.
Sure, and it's taking place mid-October. It's going to be a children's literature festival taking place at the Lincoln School. And like you said, anything that we can do to try to improve children's literacy is not only going to help those children, but it's going to help the greater economy. Because, when children read at young ages, they do better in school, and when people do better in school, they do better economically. So we all win. So this is an event that you have to support. So I think it's hot.
Paperless. We made the list. GoLocal made the list for going paperless.
Paperless, yeah. It helps the economy. Excuse me, it helps the environment, and therefore helps the economy, right? And I think society is moving in that direction. I think that's a good thing, because the less trees we have to cut down, the higher quality of the air we have, and it's just the right thing to do. So I'm glad we did it, and I think that a lot of other people are following suit, and hopefully that trend continues.
So it was an interesting process. When we moved over here to the studio to launch GoLocal Live, we sort of just went cold turkey, and
the best way.
And we left thousands of dollars of HP color printers behind, and gave those out. And
a little painful, huh?
A little painful on that. But in the grand scheme of things, other than a couple bumps here and there of a couple forms that come over that, people are in an antiquated structure that need to be handwritten, right, in a few faxes, it's been a remarkably easy process. And it saves, I'll tell you what, saves an incredible amount of waste in how much we throw out. And second of all, it saves a ton of money.
That's a tremendous
You don't realize
point.
how much you spent in, we probably spent an average of about $1,000 a month in printer cartridges on these big printers, and probably another $200 a month, $300 a month in paper.
The first point you made about cutting the waste is a tremendous point, because one of the issues that perhaps we're not as attuned to as we should be is the landfill.
Yeah.
We don't have infinite space in that landfill. We
No.
have a finite amount. So we need to do what we can do to constrain waste. Otherwise, we're going to be putting another dump somewhere, and that's going to be a big story.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
this isn't a problem for 5 years or 10 years, but 20 years down the line, we'll all be alive for it. That landfill will run out of space. So let's go paperless to try to put that off as long as we can.
It's pretty hard to cite just about anything in Rhode Island. Trying to cite a new landfill would be nearly impossible. Let's go over to the not list. Gina Raimondo had some good things this week and some difficult things this week.
And she landed herself on the not hot list because she, for some reason, the whole idea about truth in numbers is completely out of fashion with her. It's completely going out of style. When we're doing pension reform, a lot of us were really happy with her because she was all about the numbers. Let me show you everything. But that's not the case anymore. The situation over at Wexford is a great example. She will not release these tenant agreements between Wexford and the organizations, despite the fact that they're getting $4 million.
$40 million.
Excuse me, I misspoke. $40 million in state subsidies. So the fact that we're handing them tens of millions of dollars, you'd think that we deserve to know what's going on.
Well, I think there's some concerns. One's tied to the story we unveiled today about Johnson & Johnson. Are they really getting a double or a triple subsidy that's not being disclosed? Are they paying fair market rent? And are Rhode Islanders underwriting that? But also in the case of Brown University, a nonprofit with multi-billions of dollars in their endowment, they're not paying taxes, certainly like private industry are, nor are they required to. But they're moving 85 jobs down the hill. They're moving into space at Wexford that taxpayers are already subsidizing. are they really paying their fair rent over there?
No.
Or is that a double subsidy? We don't know the answer.
Right, but to your question, are they paying their fair amount? I would. It looks like no from the outside, but again, because we can't see the numbers, we don't know for sure.
I think this is the biggest problem that the governor has right now, is this issue of transparency. We run into it. Reporters here day in, day out in trying to get information that in most cases it's tied to something that she's trying to do that's positive, but because they won't turn over the information, you start to really wonder about what's going on here. And in a post-38 Studios time period, we encourage all elected officials and private sector, just tell what it is. Whatever it is, people can deal with. What people can't deal with is not knowing and understanding and feeling like there's a cover-up on everything.
100% agree with that. That's for sure.
Let's talk about a few others on the list. I think what's always interesting is tied to Johnson & Johnson is one of the heiresses of the Johnson & Johnson. Just put Johnson & Johnson in perspective. It's a $80 billion in revenue corporation, and
wow.
One of the heiresses to it is a young woman who is a equestrian,
right,
and has written a book about social climbing,
sure,
sort of the Bible of social climbing, and
she wrote a book about how to be a social climber, yet she's an heiress of Johnson & Johnson. Did you have to do a lot of social climbing to get where you were, or are you a member of the Lucky Sperm Club here?
So she was
Jackson.
Yeah, she was participating in
just everything about
event,
this woman,
and she gets thrown from her horse.
Yeah,
it's out
what a shame.
It's out on I think it was in the Hamptons, and she gets
where else?
up.
Where else, Josh?
She's furious at her horse, and she tries to kick her horse.
That is disgusting, and that landed her on the not hot list. I can't think of a worse look. I love animals, and I love horses in particular. So to see this brat get off her horse and she's perfectly fine and throw a kick made me sick, and I know, judging by the reaction on Facebook, made everyone else sick too. So yeah, I don't care what she looks like, she is not hot.
It was a video-rich weekend on GoLocal. We also captured some video that was taken at the Jocelyn Recreation Center of a member of the Recreation Department in the middle of a pretty significant altercation.
Yeah.
As somebody who's coached in the Providence Recreation League, I
Yes,
can
you
tell
have.
you it can get a little feisty over there.
And someone who's played in it also I can say that it can.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, I haven't played it in years.
But as a professional and a person who's supposed to be overseeing and separating those things, to get intertwined in that was not the city at its best.
And it was not a good Stanley. It was not a good weekend for Mr. Stanley, or a good Saturday. I mean, he caught a smack in the face, and then he got suspended without pay from his job, which is interesting.
Right.
That he was suspended without pay, and hopefully he can be. Hopefully things get better for him quickly, because he took a financial hit and a literal hit. So that's too bad.
The politicization of the NFL
is frustrating.
I think, regardless of where you see yourself on the ideological spectrum, or what you believe in relative to Black Lives Matter, relating to the national anthem, I think everybody lost this weekend. No one walked away feeling particularly good. And, you saw a remarkable number, and I think this was surprising. I made the comment privately the other day, I think since the baseball strike, it's the only other time that I've seen, and we didn't have social media then, of how frustrated people are. And maybe this is a turning point in football fans' passion and connection to the NFL.
The obsession with the NFL may be taking a turning point. And look, like I think you said it really eloquently, I don't think anyone was a winner this weekend. I know a lot of people like myself get tired of debating politics 6-7 days a week, whether it's with family or at the dinner table or at the coffee shop or for work. But I mean, it's just a situation where the players, they want to be moral, they want to act like moral arbiters or change agents, which is great. I think they should try to be change agents, but I think to do it at a time when everyone is saluting the flag or singing the national anthem, I think it rubbed a lot of the people the wrong way, and I can see why, because they saw it as, disrespect to the nation. Look, a lot of people have problems with America. I write columns every week criticizing the leadership of Rhode Island, but that doesn't make me think, geez, I've got to sit down for this national anthem. So I think there could have been a better approach by the players. despite the fact that they are fighting for a great cause, which is racial equality. Who could ever argue against that? Secondly, I think Donald Trump, this is a calculated move by him. I think politically this is a winner for him. I think most people in the heartland and even on the coast, I think most of the people tend to agree with the president on this issue. So he stokes the flames at a rally. People fall for it, hook, line, and sinker. And it ruined what should have been a good weekend of enjoying football. So sad, no winners here. Hopefully this country can come together and work collaboratively and in a constructive way to make race relations better.
Well, it's interesting. Stephen Beale, our first news editor,
Sure.
When we launched,
A great writer.
Yeah, great writer and a great thinker,
Sure.
had a piece which we picked up from the American Conservative that he freelances for sometimes, and he writes for us sometimes. And it was about the perversion relationship between the NFL and their manipulation of veterans and the U.S. military. And they'd already gotten called out by John McCain a year ago after
For getting money from the
right.
Department of Defense, sure,
Right.
which they shouldn't be doing.
And you get this feeling sometimes when you're at a sporting event and that maybe there's not quite the authenticity of the honoring of the veteran or the military. It's not organic, it's pre-planned, it's staged, and simultaneously now you have a situation in which there's this pageantry at one end, but then the players and the owners in some cases aren't respecting what they feel so strongly about and what they put their lives on the line.
Stephen's right. You're right. There's a massive disconnect, and Stephen is right to point out that the militarization of the National Football League is an issue.
Right.
And you're right. There's a massive disconnect there. On one hand, you're commemorating the military. On the other hand, you won't even stand for the national anthem. So I think that raises a great point.
Then midweek, and this is not on your list, but by midweek we understood that the FBI was investigating major college basketball programs and that there was a cash funneling system from major sporting brands, Adidas, and now there's some potential that Nike might be involved in this. Certainly Adidas.
The two biggest brands, sure.
The two biggest brands in college basketball, and they are funneling not thousands of dollars, but hundreds of thousands of dollars through and in concert with coaching staffs to pay players to attend colleges and universities. This is, we are out of amateurism.
And this is exposed not by the NCAA, who's supposed to be keeping an eye on these things, but the FBI, which
Right.
is an outside, it's the Federal Investigative Bureau. And it just seems like the NCAA is supposed to be keeping an eye on this, but the FBI investigating it wouldn't even let the NCAA know that they were investigating it.
That's
They're
right.
afraid that the NCAA could compromise it. I think the NCAA needs some serious, wide-sweeping reforms. I think we need to start talking about potentially paying players to play, so there's not this dark shadow way of paying players. I think that the players bring in millions of dollars to the university. They don't get paid a dime for their efforts. They get criticized or they get ridiculed when they take a free pizza or a free meal. It's not a good system. It's not a fair system. There needs to be widespread reform so that we don't see money getting funneled to the players in this dark, illegal way. We need to make it legal and fair to the players, and this is an issue that I think won't go away.
What we're seeing now in 1 week's time is this crashing of sports, politics, money. Is sports just too big a part of our lives? Is there just too much about it going on? Have we lost perspective about what's important?
Yes, absolutely. I think that people need to pay more attention to their government and to public affairs instead of the Red Sox or the Patriots or even the Friars, and as much as I love the Friars.
Yeah.
I think that, when the school committee decides to spend $20 million, I think people should keep their eye on that. Or when the city council decides to make a major allotment of money or pass a major ordinance, I think that affects your life more than the Red Sox clinching the American League Division Championship. So I've often said that, and I think that this week has shown that to be the case now more than ever.
Well, listen, Russ Moore, always a pleasure. By 7 o'clock this morning, I had text messages and Facebook messages to me complaining,
of course,
about who is hot and who is not this
every week.
I always ask the question, for somebody who's not hot, who's complaining, is it better to be not hot than not at all?
Than not relevant.
Than not relevant. So I think
It's a good answer.
Yeah.
I'm going to start using that.
That's right. And once Bob Kraft got off the phone, then I gave you a call. Everybody, we're going to take a quick break. Russ Moore, thanks.